Hey, you guys, welcome back to the Arts to Hearts podcast. This is your host, Charaka. How are you doing? I'm so excited to be back on the podcast. I know I have been laying low, especially with no solo episodes for the past couple of months. Just these interviews, and honestly, not just because believe me, they're a lot of work. And given where I am right now, I just feel like I'm doing the best I can, but I just feel myself that I feel a little like I really have so much to share. I really want to share and do so many things, and with the podcast also. But I just feel like I don't have the bandwidth that I can make that possible, and my heart feels like it's craving for that now. So I'm really trying very hard to figure it out that how I can be back on the podcast, be more close, be more intimate, and like talk more about what's happening. So you let me know if you're missing me the way I'm missing you, the way I am missing sharing things here more deeply. And if you are, and if you want me to bring back the solo episodes, send me a message on Instagram at Charaka Arora, tag me in your stories, or even Hearts to Hearts in Instagram. I think that will give me a motivation more and know that you're feeling what I'm feeling, and probably we'll make that happen soon. So yeah, I think that's what's been happening with me. I'm feeling that gap. I really want to do that. Let me know what you think. For today's episode, I have someone amazing, special, beautiful. So I have on the podcast today Haley Buckley, who's an independent curator, designer in New York City, and she's also the founder and curator behind Visionary Projects. I found Visionary Projects, I don't know, quite some time ago, and I really love, like not quite some time, I mean, I think 2 years feels like a lifetime right now, but I think 2 or 3 years back. I really love what she's been doing with Visionary Projects. I love her curation, the work that they've been doing, the workshops, and she runs this amazing, beautiful community based out of New York, which is also an international platform like Arts to Hearts Project. And like I always love hanging out and speaking to women in the creative field who are also in business, who also are creatives. And I mean, Haley was just so wonderful to talk to. In this conversation, we spoke about a lot of things about, her journey of being a young creative in the fashion world in the New York City, like, we all look at and see, and like the whole glitz and glam, and how then she moved to Rome and studied. She started like a gallery and then Visionary Projects, and why she's doing it, and working with artists, and like being a creative entrepreneur, and like it was just so amazing. We did a lot of talking actually before recording, after recording, and with the recording. So I hope you have fun, listening to this conversation. And if you do, you let me know what you think about it. And please let me know. I'm looking to hear from you because, like I always say, sometimes running a podcast can feel like you're putting yourself out in the world, and you never know what's happening out there unless you receive a review, which you absolutely can do if you love what I do, what we do at Arts to Hearts, or any episode or a curator or a guest who's appeared on here. Just go to Apple Podcasts. You can review us. You can share what you think about the episode or the podcast. So yeah, that's that. Let's get back into this episode and let's hear what Haley has to say. Hello, Haley. Welcome to the Arts to Hearts podcast.
Hi.
Thank you so much for coming.
I'm so grateful and happy to be here. I have been waiting for this.
I'm so excited. Thank you so much for that. Okay, before we get into this, Haley, can you tell us who you are and what you do for people who are listening to this episode? Can you introduce yourself?
Totally. Okay, so I feel like I could go on about this forever. So just to sum everything up, I'm a curator, designer, and basically the founder of Visionary Projects. I live in New York City right now. I'm from here, the tri-state area, but I kind of grew up in random places, moved around quite a bit. Before coming back to New York, I was in Miami and then Rome, Italy for a few years. I was there right after I graduated with a bachelor's in art history from Fashion Institute of Technology here in New York. And I would say in like the early stages of my career and life, I've always been interested in like the creative direction side of fashion. And always wanted to find a balance between the fashion world and the art world. And very like similar to you. And in
Yeah.
my early 20s, I got my start working in the creative departments at places such as like Tom Ford and Nylon Magazine. And I grew up reading Nylon. So it was like a
Oh,
dream being
wow.
able to just shoot photography for them and their website and their monthly print issues. And at the time, they had this little in house studio in their corporate office space. And I was just like, I felt like this young kid, and I was a young kid. I
Yes.
was 20 at the time, and with like big eyes in a world that was very overwhelming, especially here in New York. Because everybody's always so much older than you, and you just have to put yourself aside for a second. But I also did many other side jobs and had many opportunities to shoot things like backstage during fashion weeks and various other things. And then upon, I guess, moving to Italy, it was so hard as an American to find your place there. And I have so much respect for anybody who moves to a foreign country and doesn't speak the language and is willing to learn. I did so many things to find my way there and survive. But I was just so inspired being there in general, despite any drawbacks that I experienced. And I
Oh,
still
wow.
think Rome is probably one of the most beautiful cities in the world, I think, to this day, even though I left a few years ago and I'm back in New York. But it's just one of those places where you can spend a lifetime living there and still not feel like you've seen everything, if you know what I mean. It's just like
Absolutely.
there's not many places like that in the world. And this was one of those places that I could spend the rest of my life there happily. It's just, I'm not from there. I'm not Italian. So
Yes, I can get that. I spent a couple of months in Italy. I had like we had all the plans to go to Rome, and surprisingly, I stayed a couple of months, and I just couldn't visit Rome. But I spent a few months like in Milan, Florence. We traveled away here and there, but I didn't. I can definitely relate to the idea of like especially when language is a very big barrier, um, and you don't. And I think age also really matters in this context. I think
absolutely.
the early you go, you're still nascent, and like you're still malleable, and you can blend in. I think it gets, I don't know if that's just me, but I just think the more we old grow, like go grow old, it gets harder to just blend in, and like things like that. I don't know.
Definitely. I mean, there's a community for everybody, no matter where you live in the world. I found, like, as an American, you could probably be in any country and you'll find your people. The interesting part is that would you actually be friends with those people back home, or are you kind of just
Yeah.
latching onto
Right.
them because you're alone and
Right.
you're a little isolated? And I was so young. I lived there from 21 to 20, almost 25.
Wow.
And it was almost 4 years, more or less, with like visas and all of that. I had to spend some time back here and I had to finish up school and I had some jobs. So I was really back and forth, but all of my stuff was in Italy. And I really moved my life out there at such a young age. And I really tried to embrace everything that it was like it was an adventure to me, and I still think to this day life should be an adventure, and I wouldn't be who I
I
am
love
without
that.
these crazy experiences. And I recommend them. I recommend them to everybody, but at the same time I don't, because
Yes. Oh,
like,
I get that. Absolutely.
it's not for everybody. It's definitely if you find yourself like very adaptable and open and willing to change and just learn new experiences and cultures and the dynamics of like people do not live the same way you do around the world, and you accept that and you embrace it. It's a really beautiful way to experience life, and try to take advantage of it while you have the finances and the health and your youth. And I don't know. I wouldn't want to do it when I'm older. I'm happy that I kind of got a little bit of that out of my system. But anyways, like in that process, when I lived in Italy for those years, I co-owned a little gallery space there
Yeah,
in the
I
center
read
of
that.
Italy.
Yes, yes. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, it was under a different name, of course. And a lot of the artists that I worked with there, it was a really cool space. It was right in the center of Rome. It was a 5 to 10 minute walk to the Colosseum in the most beautiful neighborhood I've ever been in and lived in and
But how did
experienced.
like you in your early 20s move away into an entirely different country? Then you don't know the language, you're having a hard time figuring yourself out, and I am assuming you're a student, so I'm sure like you may
It
not be
was
like,
after my student years. It was literally,
oh,
I graduated. I almost got a job here in the city. I was interviewing. I was going to work in fashion or editorial
and
publishing.
yes, you were in fashion,
Yeah, I
not
was a
even
fashion
arts.
girl. I loved fashion. I loved art. Anything in the creative art direction industry, I knew I wanted to be in, because I'm not a fine artist, even though I have
Yeah,
a background in art history. It's like you appreciate it, but
but yeah.
I wish I could do it. It's just
But
maybe
no, we
eventually
need both. We
we
definitely
need
need both.
both. And I think artists need people to help represent them and to like push their work out there. Not
Yeah.
everybody can be an
I
artist.
think art makers are important, but art appreciators and people who embrace patrons, like they are
Yeah.
like you. I think and we can be a maker and be a patron, and you cannot be a maker and still be a patron and like work in the arts. And I think, and also I think like I've always said this also on the podcast and irrespectively wherever we do these sessions. I feel like creativity and making creative work. I think with the work that you do at Visionary Projects, especially, I feel like I always say that my work at Arts to Hearts project that I do as an artist is very important. It's an extension of my own work as an artist because we create in several forms. Some create in form of a painting, some create in form of collage, some people create business, some people curate better, but it's all of this is a creative expression nonetheless.
Absolutely. And like trying to find your place in a very chaotic world such as the art world. It's like there's just
But
so many things.
why a gallery? How did a 20 something after a graduation in a completely
Well,
new country,
it was kind of,
working in fashion, and then end up like, then you started a gallery?
starting out in fashion and then ending in art is just such a, I think it brings you a very culturally dynamic background because
That's
these two
right.
industries are so relatable and they need to be blended. After graduating in art history, when I lived in Italy for those years, it's like I co-owned a gallery space in Center City. How did I do that? A ton of risk. It was, I really went for it. And I had a partner at the time that was supportive in a way because they were doing something very similar and they were an artist. So that
Oh,
really helped, is like we kind of fed off of each other's energy at the time. And I think without that person, obviously it did not work out with that person, and respectfully, and I'm back here in the city, so it really doesn't matter. But at the time, I'm very grateful for the experiences that I was kind of, I wouldn't say forced upon out there, but I really forced them upon myself because I was young, I was hungry, I had no choice because I really wanted to live there and make it work.
yeah,
And and like I said, a lot of the artists that I worked with there at the gallery, that they were American, Canadian, from the UK. They weren't necessarily Italian, which was
yeah,
interesting. So
yeah,
it was like kind of me putting my little imprint on Rome with
yeah,
my Americanness. I don't know.
yeah.
um, but the artists that I worked with there sort of came to me with these ideas that were new to me at the time because this was probably 2017, 2018. And that was when I started it all. And I was very young, like looking back, I'm like, how did I do that? Um, I just had so much audacity in me.
That's
Um,
so good. But
yeah,
I
it's like,
think it also
that's
is
it.
like your tipping point of what you're doing today. Like, I
Yeah,
think it began
absolutely.
way early.
Like you will get anywhere in life if you have enough audacity. And that is
Yeah,
something that I learned because, like I said, I grew up in a very creative mindset, and I did fashion photography. And
okay.
that's an art form. That's being an artist, even though it was
Absolutely.
a digital artist.
Doesn't
You really
matter.
put yourself out there, your connections, your network. You can't be afraid of the body of work that you're creating and how you represent yourself, how you brand yourself and market yourself. It's like, it's being an artist is probably one of the most insane, overwhelming jobs to ever. And I have so much respect for them. But like I was saying, like the little gallery that I had, the artists, they were coming to me with all these ideas, with these international types of events or workshops or things that just weren't really common to find in Rome at the time. Nobody else was doing them. It was the art world in Rome or in Italy in general is very traditional.
Oh,
And I took these ideas and I just ran with them. And I was like, why not? I have nothing
yes.
to lose. They have nothing to lose. Let's wing it. And that's sort of how I've always been. Over time, especially post 2020 COVID era specifically, this project that was born in Italy and kind of evolved since then, it evolved into more of a platform and a community with an
Yeah.
international audience. And, when you started out doing only in-person events and selling art and having like an established storefront space and then switching to
To digital.
online things, it was
Yes.
such a change that we were all forced into.
Oh, hold on,
And
hold on, hold on. First. Tell me something. So when you moved, I have to connect my dots back again. While you were there in Rome, you started this gallery. What year was this?
I think this was probably the end of 2017, beginning of 2018.
And then how long did you do that?
Oh God, I moved back to the US the very end of 2019 into 2020.
So that was just the beginning of the pandemic.
Yeah, I had about a year in Miami that I lived there before the pandemic began the following
Okay.
year. And it was a crazy year, really.
But
And going from Rome to Miami was such a
yeah,
change.
oh yeah, absolutely. I think that was like
Oh,
a like two different energies from two different dimensions, I feel.
totally different energies.
Okay, so you shut down the gallery at that point because, of course, you had to come back. But did
Yeah,
you have any plans, or like, did you transition it online, or by that time, did visionary projects like had it come to life? What was
I
happening?
It was relatively the same without the gallery aspect. I had a live workspace that was just my studio, and it was a loft style Miami industrial, really spacious contemporary art type of space in Wynwood, which is a very art centered community, if not the biggest art community in all of Miami. It's where they have Art Basel events and all of that. So we were having events, so many things happening during Art Basel, and the partnerships and the collaborations. It really flourished during that time. And it was a really successful year. And I think I could have never in a million years imagined what would have followed that. And it wasn't something on my mind at all. I mean, nobody's mind it was on. So it was a great year while it lasted. And then I think, 2020 happened that
But
March.
were you doing? But were you doing these with the visionary projects name, or were you doing this with
No,
something
I was
else?
doing it under Visionary Projects. It was a name that sort of, I didn't come up with it. Actually, my sister did.
Oh
It was,
wow!
yeah, we were kind of doing things a little together at the time, and we were helping each other. And yeah, she like helped me come back to Miami and resettle my life in the US because I wasn't here for so many years. And
Yeah,
it was like reverse culture shock. I just was not used to it. And I was
yeah,
really trying to find my way back home. And also, I grew up mostly near Miami. So
yeah.
for me, that was a little
Easy.
bit of a home from when I was
Yeah.
young. And it was definitely a very interesting time. It was like a self-discovery time. I was only I was only 25 at the time, to be totally
Okay.
honest. And you're in such an in-between stage of
Yes.
life where you're
Yes.
like having your quarter life crisis, trying to
Yeah.
have this business be really successful, and like,
Yeah.
things were really happening, and people, we were having so many events and workshops, and it was growing, and I was working with amazing talented artists that were flying in from all people were flying in from all over the country in general, or all over the world actually, especially in Italy, because a lot of Italians did not attend those events. It was surprisingly mostly Americans that flew to wherever we were having an event, and they would just be part of it for the days that it was
Wow.
in. And I was very grateful for those experiences. They were very inspiring. I really wanted to keep up with them. But then again, it's like you also really want to evolve with how things are naturally going and not push too
Yeah.
hard on
Too
an
hard.
idea and put yourself in a box of I only want to do this. And that's sort of what the pandemic created. It's like, nope, you're not only going to do that. You are going to do so many other things right now, and this is how you're going to pivot. And we were all about pivoting at the time, and I think at the end it's just evolving. and
So
just
what really did happen then with what I think with pandemic, what hit you the heart most? And what did you like? Was there like this moment where you felt like there's a huge transition or evolution that you could feel? Not only in business, but for yourself. I think for me, I'll explain how. For me, like I think like you were saying with community, I think when we were speaking, I told you, like, I think the biggest hurdle for me in the beginning of my careers and before even starting Arts to Hearts project was to find like-minded people, like creative people that I really could hit it off and with the same, I think, wavelength, mental wavelength. And before the pandemic, for some reason, I always thought that I had to find it in my own geography. Like I had to make it like it had to come from there. And I forced it so much, but I just couldn't fit in myself in there. And with the pandemic, what really changed was that it was such a natural transition. And I realized I found my people. The only difference is this time they are not just living in my own geography, immediate geography, and they're just living some on different parts of the world. And believe me, it didn't matter to me. It really didn't. But that was such a game changer for me because I realized I can have a community, I can have support, and I can work with people from all around the world. I don't have to tie myself down where I am because, like, that's what I thought. And since then, it changed everything for me. So, like, I'm trying to understand if you had any kind of learning or something that really changed something for you.
absolutely. I think it's funny because we were just talking about this before. This whole thing about how we're both young women in the art world, just really trying to find our space and making it work and finding community. And at the end of the day, that's kind of what the pandemic really taught us. Like the darker sides of it, the first year of it, when we were all super isolated and alone. And, there was a comfort in it because we all really weren't doing anything. We were just
Yeah.
chilling at home, not much was going on. There was a comfort in that, and it was a reset. And I really appreciated that. And, I think what was born out of that were one of the few maybe good things that
Yeah.
could have possibly come out of that situation was just trying to, we were all trying to find redirection. And
Yeah.
since we were all so isolated, simultaneously find that sense of community that we were all just so desperate to figure out to just make us feel better in our everyday. And yeah, I mean, it's the first time a pandemic has ever happened in an era of the internet, and just we were so lucky because 100 years ago we didn't have we probably were very isolated. I can't even imagine doing it 100 years ago without being able to call somebody on the phone or FaceTime or Zoom. We were having Zoom parties. It was 2020 was a wild time.
Yeah.
I will never forget it, but it just, I think the project that I started originally in Italy, as I saw it evolve, obviously the most heavy time of evolvement was the last 2 years. And I still think it's in the midst of it right now because I'm sort of like you, what we were talking about. We have this insane, like, we'll wake up randomly in the morning, be like, oh my God, I have this great idea. I need to write it down. My notes app on my phone is absolutely littered with just crazy things that I've come up with. And I look back at it and I'm like, oh my God, like I was saying, like if somebody took my phone and they were going through my notes app, this is a crazy woman. Like she's very innovative and very interesting and she has cool ideas, but it's, half of them are just cool ideas at the time, but then the other half is actually following through and implementing them and really trying to make them work. And I guess that's the part of having this weird creative mind that we have.
Yeah.
Especially when when you have that entrepreneurial side of you, it's like you really want to make it work and you want to find a way to maybe make a living off of it and to just do what you love. And
Yeah.
it is, I think, doing anything that you love in the creative industry, especially for a living, and you actually are successful at it
Oh
in your own
God.
ways, it's like so admirable because
Yeah. And so
almost feel like
fulfilling.
that. Yeah, it's like super fulfilling. And you're just, not only are you creating something like a platform or a company or whatever the case is, it's like almost when it's art, it's also your own tastes and your own curation. And you're almost like an artist appreciating, like you just have so much influence that you don't realize. And you don't realize the amount of people that also notice it and pay
Yeah.
attention to it.
Yeah.
until they might reach out or comment or message you or email you. And anytime I get that, I'm always just incredibly humbled, because in our everyday, we kind of just sit here and we're like doing mundane tasks and we're working, but we like don't even take a step back and realize that like it's generally very appreciated, and we're sharing things that we're inspired by, and then we're inspiring other people, and it's just like an endless cycle of
Yeah.
inspiration, I think. I don't know, I could be wrong, that's just my own view.
No. I think that absolutely makes sense. Okay, tell me something then. What what is visionary projects for you today?
Today, I think it's sort of evolved into all of these different things, like artist collaborations, exhibits, the private dinners, the collections, the seminars, the workshops. They just sort of naturally came about as I continued to collaborate more and more with different kinds of people in the art world. So, as a curator, this is simply just my space in the art world, at least here in New York. And to be totally
Yeah.
honest, like I was saying, it's very cool to see how people are responding to it, who's following it, and how much of an
Yeah.
influence
No,
it
you have a
continues.
great community even online. I think with
Yeah.
Instagram, you have a wonderful reach. How has this like how much online are you today?
I would say right now at this very moment, until the summer is over, at least, it's very slow during the summer, partly because
Yes.
I'm mentally checked out. Um, but I would say mostly everything is online right now, but I have this space that I'm
Yeah.
currently sitting in. It's really
Yes.
beautiful. It's in the
Beautiful.
heart of New York. There's so much to be done, and there's so much that I'm willing to further evolve all these projects into. But overall, this is just a space that cultivates community both online and in
And
person.
offline. Yes.
Yeah, and it's like the workshops, they're so inspiring. They're mostly in person, but also there's some things that I do online. I'm trying to really make it 50-50.
Yeah.
Now that
I
we're
think
kind
I think with this idea, I think I keep asking myself this question. Like, we all crave, like even I do, physical events, meeting people. But I also hate the idea that I don't want to restrict myself to people who are just, again, immediately available to my environment. Like, I
yeah.
want to keep moving. I want to meet people, but I need to keep moving. And what I love about online is no matter where I am, I can still find like amazing community and people from all parts of the world. So it's like a,
Always will, especially
yeah,
when you're a pioneer and you have enough audacity to really start your own community.
yeah,
And it's hard as an artist, because it's like, okay, we're more on the other side, like what we were saying before. It's like we come from a fashion and design background, and we're not necessarily a fine artist by training.
yeah,
But we very much appreciate it, want to support it, and want to share works and really be like a visionary behind artists in the art world, and be patrons eventually when we're able to
yeah.
afford it. Like a small patron in my own ways.
Yes,
And that's going to grow over time, and also really support artists in ways that further them in their careers and give them exposure, and just share your audience and your connections and your network with them. And that's kind of what I also do through these events and through these like private meetups and dinners and these little cocktails, and there's like an artist wine night and all these like really fun things that are also going to happen in person. It's a little hard to network. It's easy to network online, but it's hard
yes,
when you're not doing something face to face. It's there's always going to be a little bit of a disconnect. So that's where the in-person parts come in. But
come in.
then that side might be very intimidating to some people, especially if you're
Yes,
shy or social anxiety. There's so many factors. Um,
yes,
it's trying to make both work and make it very inclusive. And I know the art world is so not inclusive.
yes.
Trying to break that boundary a little bit in my own ways, and being very personable and making things approachable and fun and easygoing, and just not having all these insane expectations that the art world in New York, it can be a very intimidating place.
I think art world, I think
in general.
anywhere can be intimidating for
Right.
a lot of us, I think.
Well, it's very classist. There's so many different factors, but so yeah, finding your place is very important, and supporting communities that need further. I wouldn't say that are underrepresented. That's not the right word, but just always need more support.
And
And
I think
that,
a viewpoint, I think, plays for all kinds of viewpoints, all kinds
yeah,
of work. Like I think a community or a world can only be per se a world when it's comprised of different aspects of something. Like, of course, like contemporary, modern, this and that, and black and underrepresented, and like South Asian and East Asian, and like I think there needs to be like glam or simple or serious or fun. Like I think everything needs to be respected, appreciated. Like, and I think everyone has an audience for everything, and I think it doesn't have to be so egalitarian. I think, I don't know. I mean, I just feel like I think we need to be way more inclusive in all parts, like in all ways,
yeah,
like
I
how
think we're
people
definitely
work.
there. I feel like every generation following us is, I don't know if it's going to get better or worse. I hope better, but we've come such a long way since our grandparents in certain ways. I'm not going to say politically or any of that, but like,
Yeah,
socially, we're always evolving. And I think for the best, we're just becoming more mindful and aware. And we're so internationally connected now in ways that
absolutely. That's a blessing.
yeah, like I would have never been able to talk to you all the way in India if we
Absolutely.
didn't have this. And like if we were 50 years ago, this would have never been able to happen. And it's
Yes.
so exciting to think about the future. And that's the part of like, I think being in a creative industry is
Yes.
such like, a daunting, chaotic world to establish yourself
And
in and your
I
place.
think as a creative, I always say this is such a good time to be a creative because we're at this huge shift of change and we are all experiencing that. But also just the thought like I work remotely, like I work from people all over the world. And just sometimes I just think how grateful I am because I get the opportunity to work from all parts of the world, people from all parts of the world. Um and I don't, I mean how easy it is and how much I learn from that and how much I think it's surreal for sometimes to think like I wouldn't have had these opportunities if it was not for the internet.
Oh, absolutely. And same here. I feel like we both sort of, in parts of the things that we do, we would never be able to actually survive without social media, which
Yes,
is really sad to think about. It's like we've just become so dependent on things and like, but I mean, there's one thing, it's like we're in such an amazing pivotal time of being a creative and doing what we do. And there's one thing of doing it during a time like through an extended period of a flourishing dynamic society, but right now there's also, to be totally honest, like what we were talking about before this, there's a lot of economic uncertainty where art can most certainly be considered a luxury. And
luxury.
while culturally it's very much needed, we
Yes,
rely on it. It's in our history books whether we like it or not. It's forever ingrained in our society, whether we see it right now, and it's affected so many different industries. Art will, in general, always influence many other
a
industries. And
hundred percent.
the thing is that it still caters to and is acquired by a
A
lifestyle that is
lifestyle.
simply not that inclusive or attainable to
Yes,
the vast majority of society.
yes.
And that's kind of the down part, is that right now it's such a great time, but at the same time, there's a lot of uncertainty and we just don't
Yes.
know where
But
the
we'll get
world.
through that. I think if we got through what we got through in the past 2 years, I think we
Yeah,
still, I think as a society, as a community, we have a lot to regard for each other because that
definitely.
wasn't easy for sure.
Oh, for nobody. I can't even imagine. Like, I'm so grateful and lucky that I was in the position that I was in. I mean, I moved like you. I moved home with my mother for a bit during the peak of the pandemic. I had a space, and it was on a farm, and it was a really beautiful place to go back to and be disconnected from everything that was happening here in New York, at least.
Yeah.
And I was very happy for that. But at the same time, you're in your own little world when you're on a farm.
Yeah.
That was too disconnected for me. I'm very much like a city
City
girl. I
girl.
love life. I love both, but I was like,
Yeah.
I'm itching to get back to something more diverse and cultural and like have things to do. But, and also like as a young woman in this world, there will always just be a lot of just things that are thrown your way. And
Yeah.
it's your job to simply learn how to respond appropriately in a way in which you can responsibly carry, you know, carry a respect for yourself and the value that you've been putting your work into, or the opposite and practice the value of no response. And sometimes it
Yes.
actually gets you a lot further. I've learned is that I used to be very responsive up
Hmm.
until maybe last year when I was like, let it go, do not respond, do not engage. Sometimes that actually makes me a little more angry, but like
Yes.
just keep doing your own thing
Same.
and nothing else
I
will.
love this. I was just speaking to my partner about this, I think a couple of days ago, and I was like, what I really understood with the pandemic and how I worked and what really worked for me was, um, I get like, I was hyper focused, and it was like I had these blinders on, and I didn't care in the world for what others were talking about, thinking about, and like because we were so isolated that it was still easier to do all of those things. But with I think I'm speaking specifically when it came to my own work. I think what really was different was in the past few years when I was like a lot of your things that you are around influence what you think and what you do. With the pandemic, I felt like I was in this closed bubble that really brought the best out of me as a creative that I really really loved. And I also figured that that is one of the ways that really worked for me, and I needed to learn and create that bubble for me to work, to bring out the best work. And I think that's a lot of artists experience the same thing, because you didn't have to create for a show, you didn't have to create for someone to like, you didn't we just did what we did. And as artists, as business people, as anything, like I think that was such a great learning.
Yeah, like a lot of great things came out of that period. And like I said, it's going to be very interesting in the next few years how
Yeah.
we're really going to be coming out of it, because it still hasn't gone away. We're actually, I think, at least in the US here, there's still like a record amount of cases and we're very much in it. We're kind
Yeah.
of just in the ignoring stage right now.
Yes,
So,
absolutely. And I just hope it only gets better. Mogi, tell me something. What has been the hardest part for you while building visionary projects?
well, definitely pivoting to really foster an online community is a full-time job in itself, other than doing all the other tasks that you have to do and other people may or may not help you with.
Okay.
Um, because, all in all, whenever you're doing something or anything creative, whether you realize it or not, like I said before, there's a lot more people than you think noticing these
Yeah.
very small things. And sometimes on the internet or social media, you might also catch forms of imitations of things that you've created or things that you've come
Yes.
up with. And that's just a part of being a creative in general. It's
Yes.
inevitable. And, I, like I said, I was a photographer before this, and, different types of things would happen to me back then. But especially if you're good at what you do. And at first, I used to take this all quite personally. Like for this project platform specifically, I don't even know if I should like bring this up, but this is like very casual.
Yes.
Like at the end of 2020, there was like a girl that literally copied the same name of my project, more or less, not the whole name, but like
Yeah.
blatantly enough where enough people still to this day get us confused. And I receive
Oh
messages
wow.
from time to time, and not so much as it used to be though, thankfully. Like again, I responded to things very differently back then that I do now. I'm such in an abundance mindset right now that it doesn't even faze me anymore. But they were at the time, this was the end of 2020, I think, when I was about to move back full time to New York. They were thinking that we were the same person. And I was like, oh, I
Oh
spent
wow.
time and energy and money putting everything I had into what I do. It's like so. It was like a little bit of a pushback. And I'm like, oh, like, why does this person have to be doing the same thing? Whatever. Um, and it like, it kind of bothered me at the time, but that's just a part of being an artist. You kind of have to learn to let things go.
Yeah, go.
But it was very confusing, especially when you're a young woman in your 20s
Yeah.
trying to find your way. It's like you're so vulnerable to so many
Yeah.
different things. And there are times where, I mean, again, I'm in a different place now, but at the time I was like, oh, like, like you felt like this was just going to be the end of the world a little bit. It really wasn't.
Yes,
And
I think we
I,
all go through that time.
yeah, we all go through that. And it's nice to kind of find a comfort in that. And that's the thing about having these little communities that I've created within visionary projects, is that we all talk about these things, and we talk
Yeah.
about them very openly, and we talk about mental health and all of these different subcategories that might fall under being an artist, and what it's like just being a creative in general, and not, just always like providing a space for somebody to not feel afraid and connect with people on any subject. But
Yes,
I mean,
I love that.
I remember I tried to like confront this girl and like start the conversation. I'm like, so I messaged her, hey, like, my name's Haley. I keep getting messages. I see that you've been following me for a while. At the time, I had no idea who she was. I've never followed this person before. So I just asked very bluntly, I was like, why would you like start something to like get people confused with, when it's like such a similar name, and like
Yeah.
you're utilizing a similar language and copy and content, like why? And then she blocked me, so whatever.
Oh,
I'm like, okay.
you need
But
to keep doing what you're doing.
yeah, it's like, all in all, that means in my mind, I'm like, it means,
You're doing
okay,
something.
but I'm not going to do anything about it. So just move on. And that's sort of the message that I got from her. And I think that's just a part of life now, is that,
Yeah.
when I shifted into having this abundance mindset, there's really a space for everybody at the table. And
Yes.
powerful mindset to kind of cultivate, because simultaneously, however, I also believe that taking accountability for the things that you do and how you present yourself and the work you put out there is equally as important. So it kind of goes hand in hand, but like,
Yeah, I
whether,
think sometimes, I think
yeah,
it's the moment it starts taking over your own productivity or what you're doing, and it
yeah.
diverts you, you have to ask yourself if it's worth it or not. I think,
Exactly. And that's sort of what I went through. And like, I remember I sat there, I'm like, oh, this really bothered me for a week or something. Again, it was a different time. We were like end of 2020. We were all very vulnerable. We were stuck in our homes still. Like, I was like really trying to just make everything work for me. And I just felt like we were all very vulnerable at that time. But I think now that we're in a different era of it, and we rely so much on community and creative community, and mental health has been such a forefront focus that has come out of the pandemic as well. I think it wasn't really valued before as much as it is now. It also with like the whole, live work kind of mindset.
yeah,
Like, what's the saying? We don't work to live.
to
We
live,
live,
we
or we
live
don't
to,
live to work. We work to live.
yes.
Think it goes like that, and I'm really trying to adopt that. But whether it's some girl that follows you on social media, or some factory in China copying a design of yours and selling it as a print for $5, which has also happened before, you literally just have to keep moving
Good.
forward, and like,
Yeah, fight for yourself, stand up for yourself, but let it
yeah,
not, take you away from your path. I think that's when
absolutely.
it gets not worth it.
I know. And it's like I said, you're young and you're vulnerable, and you're just like, it's hard being doing things yourself as a young person. And I didn't have much guidance at the time. And
Yes, I think that makes a lot of difference for all of us.
yeah, we're still trying to figure it out. And I think there's a comfort that everybody's just trying to figure it out.
Oh, that's such a relief. Believe
I
me. I think
know.
the
We
moment I
all
was like, nobody has it figured out. Oh, I was like, I was just so much more kinder to myself.
Yeah, I think I've become a lot kinder to myself, a lot more just relaxed about the things that you can't control, because I sit back and I'm like, let it happen. I'm not going to respond to it anymore. Our worlds just keep getting more and more saturated as time is moving forward, and it's never going to stop. So while it might not be getting any better or easier, so you might as well just embrace everything, and in an abundance mindset, especially as an artist, because in a way we're also still very much in the early stages of things. I mean, the internet is relatively still very new according to like the
Yes.
Earth's timeline. Like, I don't know how long this Earth has been here for, but the internet, maybe 20 years, not even.
Yeah.
And there's still many generations following us, I hope.
Yeah. Yes.
And like, who knows if it's going to be easier
Yeah.
or harder for them. And we're kind of creating that pathway for them.
Yes.
So there's a lot of pressure on us, and I just want to create, you want to create great work while we're
Yeah.
here.
Yes.
So yeah, just like moving forward with the times, keep getting better, continue your education, do social outreach, get involved with your communities, don't stop creating, and like literally stay inspired and do not pay
Yeah.
attention to the noise is like all I try to remind myself every day.
I love that. I
So
love
do not
that.
pay attention to the noise.
Oh, wow. Okay, tell me something. What does, I think this is very interesting for me also. Like, I want the truth to come out for a lot of people. What does like a running a community looks like in real? Actually, a lot of people think it otherwise, but I want to ask this question because I really want to bring out the truth. How is like, I think what I really want to ask is, let's say, how are you? What does your day-to-day life look like? How do you work? Do you have a team? How do you organize? How do you plan? What goes behind making
Every
all of this
day is
happen?
extremely different. And I've just been doing a couple of interviews for some contributing editors and for like a curatorial internship, because with the fall coming up and like the summer is going to be quickly going away, way before we even realize it's going to be gone. Time moves so fast, and there's really no specific day to day, which is kind of the beauty of just figuring everything out yourself.
Yeah,
It's not structured, so you really have to be disciplined. And I mean, anything you do yourself, whenever you work for yourself, if you don't have discipline, you're gonna fail. And I don't know. I'm very lucky because I just love connecting with people so much and learning about them, and just getting inspired by other people's stories, especially in a city like New York. It's just, there's no city like this in the world where there's just everybody from everywhere. And it is not like the rest of the US. We could be our own country. And we could probably survive a lot better than like if we didn't have the rest. But I mean, we're bigger. I think the city's, yeah, definitely bigger than a lot of countries out there. I think there's like
yeah,
10 and 15 million people just here alone. But this is a really inspiring place to be, and everybody is so motivated and really just want to also be part of any community and project that is being created and put out there. People want to participate, especially post pandemic. We're all looking for that sense of community that it's been lacking.
yeah.
Um, and that's kind of a really important part that came out of the last few years, at least that I think. And in the art world, we really wouldn't survive without collaboration and support. So
100%.
I really, really enjoy it, and I'm looking forward to seeing where like all of the opportunities and the doors that are going to open because of it. And I don't know. Just working with people it's so inspiring. Like I said, there's endless opportunities. I don't think, like I said, abundance mindset. If you have a scarcity mindset,
Yes.
there's going to be no room at the table for you, and you're just going to live a life of uncertainty. And you can't have that, especially when you're a creative in New York.
Absolutely. I think that absolutely makes sense because I think nowhere I think just living out of scarcity and abundance, it's like a huge difference. The way we think, the way we experience things, and the way we respond to things. I think it makes such a huge difference. And I think and of course it's way easier. It's way easy to say than to do it because of course um,
Absolutely.
life throws challenges at you. But I think constantly intentionally looking at things and seeing like um, making sure that we're not acting just out of fear and being
100%.
conscious about it, I think makes a lot of difference. I
Our
know I
response to everything is so telling of the kind of person that we are and who we want to become. And in the age of where everything is now being recorded and people are taking screenshots, and you're so vulnerable to the things that you put out there, they could be very well permanent. And just really training yourself to learn how to respond to things very appropriately and respectfully is such a powerful social tool to have. I mean, I can't even tell you how many mean messages I get.
oh
And I'm
goodness,
like,
really?
yeah, like that's just a part of
Why?
Oh my God, I don't even know. I think it's just other insecure people that don't know. I mean, I don't respond. I ignore it.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll block them if they just keep going. And I'm like, ugh, I do not need this. Though maybe sometimes a person or an artist will like comment on posts and being like, this is shit artwork. Why are you sharing this? And I'm like, oh my God. I look at their page and I'm like, okay, we're going to just put the block button on right now.
Yes,
Like,
yes.
we don't need this kind of energy. I don't want people to read this or have that associated with any work that I do. I don't need the negativity, but it happens, I would say,
Yes, I know.
once a month, which is more often than I'd like for it to happen. But it's inevitable. That's just part of having an online community. You're
Yeah,
always going to have people out there that will want to put you down and not respect anything that you do. And that's just their own problem, scarcity.
I love that.
So
Oh my God,
it's
thank you so much.
yes, it was honestly so nice catching up and talking to you.
Same
I'm so
here.
grateful for this.
Oh, absolutely. I think it felt, I think even before recording, it felt like we never, this isn't the first time we are speaking
I
because
know.
it
I was like,
didn't
oh my
feel
God,
like
I've been friends with her in a past life. Like,
that. I definitely feel the same. But okay,
yeah,
I want to do the rapid fire quickly because I don't want to let you go before that.
definitely.
Are you ready for it?
Go for it.
And this has to be quick. There's no right and wrong. Just give me what you have. Okay?
Okay.
Okay. Here you go. One thing you want to convey through your work in the arts.
Oh my God, integrity.
Wow. What's that one word that describes you the best?
Outgoing.
Oh, wow. If you could have a studio slash gallery space anywhere in the world, where would it be?
Duh, here in New York, I'm sitting in it.
You have it.
I have it.
Oh, goodness. That means you're also quite close to where you want to be.
Yeah.
I love that. Oh, wow. Your biggest source of inspiration.
Oh, everybody that I come across on social media, the people that I share work of, absolutely everybody that I talk to, everybody.
Oh, wow. Okay. Who's your favorite woman artist from any point of time?
Oh my God, Helen Frankenthaler. Any
Oh,
woman
wow.
in like mid-century 60s New York City, I'm obsessed with.
Your art history nerd is out here now.
Oh my God. Yeah, Helen every day, all day.
Okay. Who's your go-to person when you're in trouble or in need of advice?
Probably my father.
Oh, wow. Okay. Um, this is a little bit more than one word, so take your time. Can you share something that you really savor and like really enjoy? Any memorable moment for you? Probably as whatever role that you want to share with, as someone who leads like or runs a community, creative community, as a fashion photographer, as anybody, but anything that has to do with this, anything that makes you feel where you are today and you feel very grateful, and something that we always try to hold on to us.
Are you talking about a past experience that
Yes, any memory, anything.
I mean, I think me just really keeping focused and doing all the work that I did in my early years during college. I was a full-time student. I worked, I had multiple jobs, an internship. I prioritized work very much over everything else. And I'm happy I did that at an early age.
Wow.
All those experiences in the Fashion World magazine, editorial, everything.
Oh, wow. If you were to meet younger Haley today, what advice would you give her?
Oh God, to not be so insecure.
Love that. Okay, shout out to an artist who you're currently loving specifically on social media.
Oh my God, too many. I can't answer that question.
You can answer a few. I mean, mention a few. That's okay. Anybody.
I don't know. I really love. I mean, oh man, I really don't think I can answer this. I've been she's an old artist and she's again one of the originals, but I've been absolutely in love with like Judy Chicago.
Of course.
I follow her and I'm like, I message her on Instagram and I don't even know if it's her. And I'm like, hey, I want to work. Like, I'm just so inspired by her. Just everything that she stands for.
Worth the shot. Always worth the shot.
Yeah, always worth a shot. You have nothing to lose. And I have enough audacity to do it. So.
Oh, love that. Okay, as a woman entrepreneur, creative entrepreneur, what's that one piece of advice that you'd like to give anyone who's listening to this episode?
To, like I said before, ignore the noise and have an abundance mindset because it will get you very far in life.
Oh, wow. You did so good. Look at you coming out flying colors.
I know. Thank you. So you did too. I mean, we were both just sitting here in different parts of the world. I think what time is it there for you? Probably past midnight.
No, this is 10 p.m. for me. But I
Oh, okay.
usually actually record. I think that's I've been doing this for like now past 2 years, so I've got a hang of it. So I either record like super early in the morning, 5 or 6, or then I do it past midnight, like
Yeah,
12 p.m. or like
that is
stuff.
like, the dedication is incredible because I thought I'm like, wow, it is 12:30. It is bright out here. It's so like, beautiful hot summer day. I'm like, it's probably the same. It's incredible, like technology and everything that we're doing these days. And like
Absolutely.
I said,
I think that's what we end up coming with. I think right now I wouldn't say doing these recordings are the easiest thing for me because me moving between two cities, living in a suitcase, like I literally have placed a mic anywhere possible, even if I miss like carrying like a mic for some reason or like even right now. So I'm recording at my house right now. My studios, I'm not going to my studio regularly. And like I have two children in the house. My brother has like I have a niece and a nephew, and I just told them, please, for God's sake, just 1 hour, don't yell. So I think when you really enjoy something, you just do it. I mean, I know I may not be making the perfect episodes right now. May not be the whatever
okay.
I expect it to be, but I want to do it. I mean, I wouldn't give up for anything. I mean, anything. I love
Nothing is
this.
ever supposed to be perfect. And I think
I love
breaking
it.
that mindset that it's okay. I mean, I had the UPS guy ring my doorbell like 3 times. I'm like, of all times throughout the day, why now?
Now.
I'm like, I couldn't control that. Like, they probably left my package somewhere. I have no idea. Like,
Oh,
but
what even strangest thing, like the other day I was recording this episode with someone and I was like, I was all alone home and I was like, oh my God, I have home to myself. I could do this recording. This will be like, I wouldn't have anything in between. And for some way, my nephew is just in the next room and I didn't know about it. And right in the middle of recording, he starts crying like he's really young. He's just 1 year old. And
aw,
he cries like for the next 15 minutes. And I'm like, why now?
I
Out
know.
of everywhere.
That's why I admire everything you do with this podcast, especially given your current living situation. Not living, but like your current life
Yeah.
situation, going back and
Mm.
forth and really that's the key though, making it work with your lifestyle. This is,
Yeah.
you chose to do this and just make the best of it. And
Yeah.
I think you're doing a great job. So
Thank you. Thank you.
all
I
good.
think that's what also Hearts to Hearts is to me. I think um when I thought of having a podcast, and a lot of things like even the project or anything we do for you do, like a lot of people think, oh my God, this is a kind of I think we all have like a stereotypical image of how certain things might look like. Like, oh, if you're running this business, you would have like this kind of a lifestyle, or like if you have a podcast, you necessarily may not like you may be doing it out of a perfectly soundproof studio or like stuff, or you're making art so you have this huge fancy studio. And I've been there. I had a beautiful studio. I still have it, but I'm not working out of there anymore. But that does not mean I'm not going to make art. I'm
Yeah.
living between two cities. I'm making art on the floor, and that's where I mean that's okay.
Honestly, though, the things that we see on social media from a select few of people,
Yes.
it's so curated and there's such a disconnect that is just not the reality of 90% of what people's situations are. And then we compare ourselves to like the people that have the beautiful studio spaces and the multi-$1,000 podcast setups with
Yeah.
like state of the art equipment. And that it's just it needs to kind of stop. Like
Yes, and
that.
I think it takes away. I think if I were to think that only a podcast could be made when I had a pin drop silence, or like I had the best I have great mics, but I don't have the best environment right now. And
Yeah.
I used to have, but that does not mean I will stop doing what I doing. And
Oh,
I think
totally.
if someone would have told me, like, I think why I always purposely share this is because anyone who's listening and wants to start something and they think they don't have the right infrastructure right now, this is an infrastructure that you need.
That is
Even
not.
below this,
Yeah.
like there's so many projects I have stopped myself from pursuing because I thought I wasn't ready. because I didn't have like what this.
Here. So
I
many
think
things I feel we both would have been really great at that we pushed aside because we just didn't think we were ready for, and we didn't have maybe the right space or equipment or something that is just so like so superficial, because we see other people having it, and
and
that
that's
is
the
just
only
not
way.
true. I think
Yeah.
we deprived ourselves of
Yes.
opportunities that probably would have opened many doors for us years ago if we
Yeah.
just really did them and not cared about
Absolutely.
what anybody else thought of it.
Yes, absolutely. I love that. And also, I think with the numbers, also, a lot of time people think like, oh, somebody has this 1,000, 10,000. We've not reached these numbers today. I think when I recorded, it was just a few people, and then a few more, then a few hundred. And I think just glorifying these facts that no, not every podcast has to starts at this point, not every podcast records at this point, not every artist starts like this, not every platform is big in day one.
Oh,
It takes
absolutely.
time.
I remember I had zero. I was like,
Oh,
okay, well, I guess this got to start sometime somewhere. Might as well start now than just keep
yes.
waiting. I
And
keep
look at
waiting.
you now. Like, look at you. You've built this amazing platform. I love your design aesthetic. I was just saying that to you also. Like, I think for me, as someone who's design obsessed and with all things, like, I have a keen eye for it. And I was like, this is one I never forgot your work for some reason. I think you did those candles. I remember,
Yeah.
the soy candles.
Oh, yes. I
And
honestly, we made those in our studio. And
oh
that was
wow,
like, again, middle of pandemic when we're like, okay, what are we all going to be doing? How are we going to like spend this free time that we have? And literally, I just started creating candles. I was like, it was just such a
wow.
huge hobby of mine that it just turned into like an overwhelming, kind of took over my life for a little bit. Was pretty honestly, it was really good for like mental health. I found it was very therapeutic,
Yes.
and making like a tangible piece of art
Ah,
is really nice to see a finished work. So I understand artists when they finally finish something that they created, and when I started doing that, I was like, this is a really good feeling. And then trying to like see who else it resonates with, and like it smelled so beautiful. It's functional. People can use it. That's beautiful in your home. Doing things like that. I mean, who knows? Maybe it will happen again. There's just so
oh,
many
I'm sure you
possibilities.
will. I'm sure you will. And so
Oh,
much
honestly,
more.
there's so many other things that I'm focused on
Yes.
that it's not even like at the top of my mind anymore. But at the time, we created so many of them. I was like, we gotta do something.
Yeah,
Like,
I think, and I think that's one thing that you really have shared is beautiful. It's also sometimes not taking ourselves too seriously, not taking our work too seriously, not
oh,
taking our practice, our businesses too seriously. Because if
no,
you're not having fun, then
yeah.
even, I mean, you still, even if it gets hard, you need to figure out ways where you can still move forward and have fun.
Experiment until your last day on earth. Always experiment and have fun, but also like learn how to capture things and things that you're doing and document them in a very beautiful way that like will
Yeah.
engage other people, and you can build your audience out of that. Once you learn how to start capturing things and shoot things and video and all of these different, it's so important in building your brand. I think a lot of artists need to, that's something that they really need to really focus on and learn, because it's like I said, going into the future, it's only going to get harder. It's not going to get easier.
Yes.
It's
Yeah.
more and more saturated. You really have to stand out. Just have a good eye, capture things, document your process. Don't be afraid, and just be vulnerable respectfully. Don't
I
react.
love that.
I feel like as a creative, people are always going to come at you. Everybody always has something to say, whether it's
Yes.
kind or really rude. Everybody's always going to have an opinion,
Yeah.
unsolicited opinions. Just ignore them. Or, I mean, if it's a compliment, of course, like accept it with grace and be very humbled. But like, there's just so much like noise and like things out there in the world that you cannot pay attention to it. And
I love
don't pay
that.
attention to what other people are doing either, because there's like a whole other rabbit hole of things that you're not going to be able to get out of. And yeah, the comparison is insane.
I
I don't
love
know.
that. Thank you
There's
so
always
much
going
for
to be.
sharing so much of your wisdom and good
Oh, thank you
thoughts,
so
brilliant
much.
ideas.
You too. Again so grateful that we got to talk and spend this time. It flew by.
Same here, same here. Okay, before I let you go, can you tell me where we can find you? How can we support you? If you have something upcoming, feel free to use this space to share anything that you want with us.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, visionaryprojects.org is the website where everything is on there. And then, I mean, the social media, Visionary Projects NYC. We're very much New York based, even though it's very international. Those are the two things, and that's it for right now. I mean, my fashion stuff is totally unrelated to this, so I'm not gonna
No, you want to, please feel free to.
no, that's for another. Honestly, that's a
Fine.
project that I'm gonna hold so close and dear until it's like you see the finished product. And I'm
I
not, you know,
can't.
as creative. You're also that kind of person where like you don't want to really share things until it's
Yes.
done. Like you feel so vulnerable in that
Yeah,
position. Ugh.
I love that. But I'm really looking forward to that.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, just visionary projects. That's it.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Haley. Thank you so much for your
Thank you
time,
so
and I'm
much
so
too.
grateful to have you.
Yeah, have a good rest of your evening.
Thank you to you too. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. If you like this episode, don't forget to give us a review and share this episode with your friends on social media and let us know, tag us, tag Haley Visionary Projects, and let them know that you heard them and you resonate with what you heard or what you liked and what you want to share with us. And we would love to repost and share some love with you. So please, we look forward to your support, and I will meet you back here again in the next episode. Till then, bye-bye. See you.